8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13 frames. Yeah, so there should have been a 14th frame in here, and there wasn't, so definitely going to be a bit of mess to tidy up here. But I just love these beautiful organic shapes, and they're lost when you do framed beekeeping, because with framed beekeeping it's all about keeping flat bits of frame next to comb next to each other. So that's one of the things that I like about seeing wild comb is the beautiful shapes that it comes in. So I'm just pushing the hive tool in between the edge of the comb and the wall of the hive. And at the moment these bees seem very peaceful. I think that's a lot to do with the lovely weather. I do remember them being quite feisty last autumn. So I'm kind of expecting that they won't be as friendly when we get in. Let's see if we can do some close-ups of the bees as well. As they're here on the edges watching them. See if we can get the light right on them as well. So I'm really liking seeing how little reaction there is from the bees to me. They're watching me, checking out what I'm doing. But I wouldn't be surprised if in a minute all of them rush over to me. There's the odd one coming over now. I often get asked where you find propolis in a beehive. Here between these, this is all completely sealed up between the frames with propolis. Here you can see it shining there. So one of the places I would harvest it is from gaps like this when you open them, just when you're going through your beehive. Have a little propolis pot. And that's also one of the reasons why I haven't opened these hives till now, because it's important that propolis seal stays on for the cold nights in winter till there's enough bees that they can keep the brood warm. Actually not coming up. And ever so slightly rolling the bees as well. It's not nice. There we go. So a load of honey up. There's the comb that I was just cutting off with the hive tool, and then there's a piece of comb that goes in this dip here that's still joined on the inside. See if you can get a shot down in here where this honey is on the side of the wooden hive. Might have to get even closer to the light.
I can't see it.
There? This comb on here?
Yeah. Yes.
So whoops. Okay, there was the bit that was holding it on. Do ask me questions anytime you have any.
Okay. Why are you scraping it off?
Because I don't necessarily want bees to attach more comb to there.
Yeah.
So it's less destructive if they keep the comb on the frames. because that only had honey on,
Mm.
there was the queen wasn't going to be on there. But here, we already have drone production going on.
Mm-hmm. Where's that?
This is the drone brood here.
Mm-hmm.
So unlike worker brood, the drone brood is its domes. So people often talk about drone domes. So drone brood happens in bigger cells like these cells here. These smaller cells here are worker size cells. Don't know if you can see the difference between these here. Drone cells, worker cells.
Mm.
And then drone brood is often at the edge of the hive. So if there's a cold snap, they would sacrifice the drone brood rather than sacrificing worker brood. And pretty much the same on the other side. So this is honey here, sealed honey. There's a little bit of nectar there, that's honey that's not finished. And then there's quite a lot of cells here with pollen in there. So that would be bee bread. When you buy pollen online or wherever, you're buying little granules. That's like what the bee has on her legs here.
Mm. And
the way that's harvested is that there's a pollen trap on the way into the beehive that brushes those off. Whereas here, this is how the bees store it, and then it gets slightly fermented with a bit of honey as well, and that's bee bread. That's how I would have it. You kind of have to be a beekeeper to get bee bread. And then what we have here actually is a queen cell, the beginnings of a queen cell, so we call this a play cup. And if I break inside it, you can see that there's not an egg in there. I think it's too early for them to have done that. So I'd actually assume this was from last year. And yeah, there's no egg there, but when they were feeling nice and strong last summer, later on last summer, they might well have made that, but then not felt like swarming, or not gone through with it because it was too late in the year. Just a thought on the survival of the bees in this hive actually, because there was one frame missing out of the end here, and there's not an absolute seal between the outer lid and this here, there would actually have been a top vent on this hive, which would have helped to reduce moisture. And it was a wet winter this winter, so that might account for the good survival rate in these colonies, and points towards moisture having been a problem last winter. So here we have a little bit of drone brood here, just a few domes, and then you can contrast that with the worker brood here. Also the overall pattern of the brood is really nice, in that you've got a ring here of sealed brood, which would have emerged from the middle, and then as these emerged, the queen would have laid more in there, and on the outside edge here you've got bees that are just about to be sealed up, cells that are about to be sealed up. So it just shows that there's consistent queen production, that it's not what you brood production. Because what you often get in spring is that you get cold snaps where they shrink back, and so then you get all the brood as a single age. And if there's disease, you'd expect this kind of pattern all over. This is just coincidence here because of how things worked out over time, I imagine, and a bit of pollen in between. But if all the brood was looking specky like here, rather than being like tidy areas like it is there, then that would be a bit of a cause for concern. Here we have a baby bee. She would have just emerged. She's looking for some food at the moment. and I can tell she's a baby because she's got lots of that white fluffy hair on her back, which rubs off over time, and she's hungry looking for food, so she's probably literally only just emerged. And then here, also next to the drone brood, so I can really find them, is another play cup. I tend to squash them down when I'm doing an inspection, not because I think it makes any difference to the bees particularly, they can repair that back in hours, but because it then tells me that when I see new ones, say in a month's time, that I know that they've been making new ones, which tells me about how they're feeling, optimistic about life and things. So here we have some more pollen as well, pollen stores, and again really nicely defined ring of brood.